Uh, Hi, Dick. This is Alexander Fraser Kantrowitz. I enjoy your presentations on caliber and such in the 1911. It is a favored platform of mine as well, uh, and appreciate your advice. I think I might stick with the 45 ACP and see if I can go with the short trigger and uh, flat mainspring housing, etc. My hand is like 113 centimeters with the index finger, as I mentioned. So unfortunately, I've got trigger reach problems. But anyway, on to your latest video about summer of 2024, it now being June 1st. I'm in Leningrad. We're experiencing the White Nights. This is my first time here at this time in Leningrad. I was here, what was it, 2 years, maybe a year or 2 years ago with cousins in Moscow. And I missed the White Nights, but anyway, I'm kind of retired here. I'm 55 years old. And I should also say I was a Shackman hire. No one knows what that is, so I'll just call it a federal anti-corruption hire. I was a Green Party cadre. I'm an actual, I guess, I don't know what you call me, a Marxist, maybe a communist, although I'm not in any organization as of now. And but despite that craziness, I what. I agree with a lot of what you say, I guess. I wouldn't call our opponents leftists. I'm an actual leftist. I don't mean to say, there's a phrase for that, but, I wouldn't, I'm not trying to cast Obama and company out of the circle of true Marxism or anything like that. Basically, I think what it comes down to is if you look at intelligent, honest analyses, such as Alexander McKay to start with. He's with the, an actual, Marxist. He's with the Communist Party of Great Britain, Marxist-Leninists, I believe they call themselves. Excuse me. You can catch one of his comrades, Jyoti Brar, on Garland Nixon's show. Garland Nixon, who's a friend of Scott Ritter, if you like your commenters, more all-American. Scott having been a Marine and an intelligence officer. Basically, I think, just to kind of get some definitions in order, an actual leftist, an actual communist like myself or Alexander or others, we're for, number one, the dictatorship of the proletariat. That is, right now, the in America and around the world mostly, the bourgeoisie, the capitalists are, in power, and they exercise a dictatorship over, number one, the working class, and then number two, the petty bourgeoisie, the small bourgeois, the shop owners or lawyers, doctors, etc. The police function as basically their arm of control, enforcement, physically in the day to day. So dictatorship of the proletariat. And also, that's the basic part of it. So I'll just leave it at that. Maybe if you look at maybe Caleb Maupin, kind of he's more conciliatory and towards the real America, and has some good points about populists, which I would basically what we're looking at. There was an article also, ironically, by Boris Kagarlitsky, who's in prison here in Russia for being a fifth columnist against the Russian state. But he wrote a column back when Trump was elected, who's afraid of Donald Trump? And he actually made the good point that from a social democratic standpoint, European social democratic standpoint, not Marxist per se, I would call him, but he's whatever, what we would call a reformist, a Menshevik, historically here in Russia. But Kagerlitsky made the point that Donald Trump represents Main Street, the industrialists in America, who, to one extent or another, want to, bring back some industry to America, who want to start a public works project for real. I would call it a crooked right-wing mafia New Deal. So the chumblones, as John Cass used to put it, have some quarters in their pockets to go to the casinos, etc. And, basically a more social state, what the Stalinists, the Maoists might have called social fascism, or even, the Bolsheviks, the actual leftist communists might have called social fascism, 100 years ago. But, be that as it may, ironically, a lot of us on the actual left would call Donald Trump objectively more left than Joe Biden, Obama, Clinton, who represent, as Kagerlitsky and others, Maupin and I don't know McKay so much, but have pointed out that the Democrats, the liberal wing of the ruling class, represent financial capital. And if you read, actually, it's kind of funny to say, speaking to you, but if you read Lenin, Imperialism, the highest stage of capitalism, he talks about this, that as capitalism progresses historically, it concentrates and then it exports itself, internationally. And that's what's been happening under, American imperialism, and before that British imperialism, and, European imperialism in general, that the capitalists, the firms, the concerns, basically exported themselves out abroad. I guess in today relevantly it would be like iPhones, clothing, like all the industries, car manufacturing, even all the crap you buy at Walmart that's shipped in from China, to start with. That's part of the strategy, and I guess, financially they play games with currencies, or they bet on these companies in the stock market, and, these companies locate themselves abroad, etc. So that's basically Hillary, Obama, etc. Biden, they represent Wall Street and international capital, and I think the quip was, international capital is about, $300 billion companies with 300 employees, and the populist or industrial capital is about, a $3 billion company with, 300,000 employees. Such that, you used to have like car manufacturers or steel manufacturers in the USA. And, so what else besides that? I mean, I agree with you that, the Democrats generally in the big cities have been very dirty since the days of Tammany Hall. Oliver Stone's script writer with America's Untold Stories series on YouTube, had a couple of nice episodes on that. And I can't remember his name right now, but anyway. I'm sure you've experienced that. I mean, you're older than I am. I knew precinct captains or various criminals working for the city. I was a truck driver, ended up at O'Hare, was in CDOT and what's the other department? I was in water. And yeah, that was quite the experience. I mean, as someone who was honest, not only on the left, actual left, not liberal, but on the left, if you look at my other videos on my channel, you'll see me recount my experiences with liberals. And I think I hate liberals out of, more than you, and, more than, many people who were populists, because I actually, they were my family, they were my neighbors, they were my coworkers, they were my bosses, and I just saw the dirty dealings up close and the hypocrisy, and I was threatened with violence. I had to carry guns in Chicago. I had to point guns at some of these criminals sent by these Irish political criminals over Green Party Democrat disputes. So so is there another point? And I don't know. I mean, in terms of the big picture, oh boy, as a communist. I just look at America and, I think, look at Chairman Omari Yeshtillah. Before I watched your video, I watched his video, and he makes a lot of good points. I don't agree with him that, he says, black people are not part of America. I don't agree with that. I think, America is a nation, and, blacks are part of that. They're an important part of that. Half the blacks, like in Chicago, are crooked and should be repressed. But, the other half are, the vanguard of any revolution as I would see it, for real workers' democracy. So, it's just, this country, I view, or that country, this country, whatever, America, I'm in former Soviet Union now, but America is very, I would call it historically liberal in terms of individualist, and that applies to Democrats as well as Republicans. Everyone's an individual, right? Everyone really doesn't like the government, really, and so that becomes a problem from my perspective of if workers try to organize, good luck. Who's going to organize? Among the hillbillies, among black hillbillies, or the black population, let's say, among the Mexican population, among the historical descendants of revolutionary Germans, which was Wisconsin first and foremost, etc. But Illinois as well. Although probably the better Germans got the hell out of northern Illinois. But the Poles, the Ukrainians, oh boy, those are some like real far right, anti social democrat populations. And like half the blacks, half the Mexicans, they're basically counter-revolutionary trash. The other half's great, but those other populations, good luck. So that's part of the reason I'm retired over here in the former Soviet Union, because things here, from my perspective, they're much better. They're socialized. Look at Tucker Carlson's take on Russia today. Well, the reason Russia is the way Russia is today, with basically the masses can afford to live and even prosper, perhaps. I'd say live. They're not really prospering. They're living, though. It's better than America, for at least the bottom 30% of Russia and America. You compare the populations, it's much better here in the former Soviet Union. The reason for that is we had a revolution. We had the dictatorship of the proletariat very briefly, and we had a revolutionary bureaucracy. It was like France during the French Revolution, except even more so. And the trash really got taken out here. Here where I am in now called St. Petersburg, I'm guessing they shot somewhere in the neighborhood of 20% of the population, which were aristocrats and capitalists and, fifth column traders, just gunned down, thrown in the canal and drowned, etc. That's what they did in Yalta. I was there over the winter. And, it was goodbye, good night. You're an enemy of the people, off you go. Same like as in France, 1793. So, and the American Revolution and the American Civil War to a lesser extent. But, here we really took out the trash, so life's much better for the majority of people. America moving forward, I don't know. I don't have a lot of optimism because, Majority of the population is working class, but they don't really have class consciousness. I have, real doubts about their level of class awareness. I think populism could be, a better alternative, certainly, to liberalism for the majority of people. And, that's kind of what we have over here in the former Soviet Union these days. Um, but generally liberalism rules like individualism, the rule of, the capitalist. That's what it is all around the world practically, except for Cuba and North Korea, and but at least here there are limits on the sociopaths, whereas in America, basically Donald Trump and the populists are, a limited resistance to that, I guess. So, best of luck, and I don't know that. But the other thing too is I think Alexander McKay made the good point that now maybe he's being too mechanistic, but he did point out that industrial capital is still capital, and the American empire is going down the toilet. And Donald Trump, ironically, given what the liberals screech, may be the smart money, may be the guy who actually, like Roosevelt, ironically in a way, may be the guy that actually saves or helps American capitalism restabilize. Kind of pulls back in, reindustrialize America to an extent, get the public works going, get some socialized medicine going. Ironically, I mean that happened in Germany under Bismarck. So the putative right wing of America could introduce socialized medicine. Go figure. I guess a lot of you right wing boomers love your Social Security, and Townsend the socialist was the one who helped to introduce that idea. So at any rate, good luck. You're going to need it. It's going to be amusing as hell to watch the liberals fight the populists, from my perspective. I'd love to take out the trash in Chicago. I hate those people. Half that city needs to be repressed. But I don't know. I don't think for me it's really worth it to go back there because it's just capitalist. It's capitalist on capitalist violence, and as Churchill said about Nazis versus the Soviet Union, let them kill each other, and then maybe we'll move in. But I don't know. I think America's going to be a mess. But hopefully you populists come out on top. I guess it'd be less shitty. Yeah, it'd be less shitty. So take care. Thanks again for the caliber and platform advice. I like my 45s. Might consider 40, but it seems it's a bit hot for maybe the EMP. And I'm kind of more of a traditional kind of guy, ironically, when it comes to that. So I'll try to stick with the 45 maybe, or the 38. I got a couple J frames, steel. Yeah, I like that, steel J frames. So hot load out of steel J frame, or even a wad cutter. But anyway, take care.